Okay, and some of the exciting new upgrades we're going to add to the gun externally include the Apex barrel. This barrel is designed to give you a longer shot, a further shot, and also can actually spin the ball. So for the woods ball play, we can actually put spin on the ball. Yeah, Apex barrel. Check it out. Next, we're gonna install a magazine. Now, this is not gonna actually be a magazine that's gonna be functional. However, it's just for looks. It does have some functionality in that the actual magazine itself has a storage compartment inside of it, so you can actually store stuff in there if you'd like to. But mainly, we just want to add it so it looks cool, right? Next, we're going to be installing some grips. So this grip is a rubber grip. It's an Empire rubber grip. Basically, it's Picatinny. So we can install it on the Picatinny rail and it comes out. So it's also a stand, so we can stand our gun up, because it is going to be a pretty big gun and we're going to want to be able to stand it up on its own. But that grip is kind of big, so we want to maybe have a secondary grip. This is an AIM Sports aluminum grip. And with this grip, basically, I'm going to have a little bit more leverage. Yeah, you can grab it very easily. So this will be our main grip. The other one will be mostly as a stand. But, you know, if either one gets too cumbersome at any time, we can always remove one. It's very easy. Again, Picatinny connection, pretty universal. Next, we are installing a scope. So this is a AIM Sports 9x40mm illuminated scope. So basically you pop these up. These are just protectors for the lenses. And let's put it on let's illuminate that for you. So that's red. Or you can go green. So depending on your preference, red, green. So a scope. Next, we're going to be installing a Warrior 6-point collapsible stock. The butt just goes against your shoulder so that you have a little bit more leverage when you're carrying the gun. Again, it's going to end up being a pretty big gun when we're done with it, so we're going to definitely need as much leverage as we can get. And for the body, we are going to be installing the Killhouse M249 shroud. We're not going to be doing the stock for it or the it comes with like a box mag. We're going to do a bit of a Frankenstein kind of custom job. So that's the main, and this is the main body. I've actually already attached a laser to it, laser beam. So that's attached again through Picatinny connection at the bottom, and that's going to be the body of our new gun once we're done with it. Now, because we're going to be heavy gunners, we're going to be shooting at such a high rate of fire, we do need a 500 round. Well, we don't need it. You don't need any of this stuff, but if you want, this is a 500 round hopper. We're going to throw that onto our gun and we're just going to let loose. So yeah, if you're going out into the woods, this also can come in handy. I do have the smaller hopper as well for it. I even have a stovetop connection. If you want, you can use this. This is just for 60 balls it carries, or it can also just increase the height of your hopper and it's a little bit offset, just so that you can see through your scope, right? And finally, yeah, I believe that there's more that we're gonna install, or at least try to install. I don't know where any of this stuff is gonna fit anymore, but this is AIM Sports red green dot reticle sight. So it's just a sight, so you look through it, you'll see a dot, it's illuminated again. I'm not gonna bother turning it on and off, but it's basically the same as the other one. There's a green, there's a red. Yeah, so pretty ambitious. Got this too, just in case we need to have something offset. So this is an offset Picatinny rail in case we want to attach something like to the side. Like let's say we don't have room for our sight on the top. Well, that's, yeah, I guess so. I guess you can kind of look through that sideways like that. I prefer that to be straight on the top, but we'll see what happens, gents. We'll see what happens. So internally, the changes that we're going to be making to the A5 today are numerous. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to install the Tech Super Bolt. What this basically is, it's a replacement bolt for the A5. It has this spring basically here, and it has this space for the latch arm. So basically the spring goes here, and what happens is if a ball hasn't fully loaded into the chamber, it'll detect that, and rather than cycling forward, the latch will pull it back and it'll allow the ball to fall down, and then it'll push forward. So basically it's the anti-chop bolt. I don't know if you guys can see that, but the anti-chop bolt. So that's basically what the spring and the latch arm mechanism is for, is just to avoid breaking. So we'll be installing that bolt. I'm pretty excited about that. Now, since we're replacing the bolt, what we're going to also do is we're going to replace the hammer. Now, in poppet valves, as you know, the hammer hits the back of the valve. That opens the valve and releases the air, pushing the bolt forward. So this is known as the Tech Zero Kick Hammer. Again, I don't know if you guys can see that very well, but this is the second edition. The first edition they found was a little bit light, and it wasn't producing enough power to actually hit the back of the valve and open the valve to release the air. So what they did is they added stock. You can buy these as an accessory for the first set, but these are basically it's just a weight that you put in the back just to make it a little bit heavier. The whole point of the zero kick hammer is to make the hammer light. So when it's moving back and forth inside of the chamber, it's not producing as much kick because there's not as much weight moving back and forth, right? So that's the point of that. So it's supposed to reduce the kick in. At the high rate of fire that we're trying to achieve, kick is going to be very important. We don't want that to kick because it does affect accuracy. So next what we're going to do is we want to install the Tech squishy paddles. And now what these are for the Tippmann A5 has the cyclone feed, which basically is air that pushes these paddles forward, and what that does is that loads the ball into the chamber. So you don't need to buy an electronic hopper, and it's better than a gravity fed hopper because it's actually using air to push these paddles, and the paddles push the ball into the chamber, and that's what fires the gun. So the reason for these is they're a little bit softer than the original that come with the Tippmann A5. And the reason for that, the reason you want them to be softer is if you are shooting very high rates of fire and these things are spinning like crazy, you don't want them to be too hard, so whereas to break a ball as they're spinning. So these are softer, so they have a little bit of give on the ball in case it's spinning too fast, and hopefully we'll reduce breakage. You'll notice part of the theme is to kind of reduce breakage with these, especially with the anti-chopping bolt and with the squishy paddles. And the point of that is that the Tippmann A5s, they run at a very high operating pressure of 750 psi. And what that means is with that higher operating pressure, each time this bolt hits the back of the valve, it's smack, 750 psi, and that's very hard on paint, right? So the amount of pressure coming off of that is very hard on paint, and that might break a ball in the chamber, and then it's not a fun time for anybody. And finally, something I'm very excited about, we're going to be installing the Ape Rampage board. This is a circuit board for the Tippmann A5. And basically what this will do is, since we're switching it to an electronic version to the e-grip, This will allow us to increase our rate of fire. We can have an unlimited rate of fire basically. And now whether that's practical, whether that will shoot is something different, but the limitations are much fewer, and it does have 3 times the battery life. It has a more convenient shut off. It's a great board. It's a great upgrade to the Tippmann A5. I'd recommend it. So let's put this stuff in and let's see what it can do. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's get our hands dirty. Let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take off our original grip. Right now it's a mechanical gun. One shot, one trigger pull. So what we want to do is we want to remove these pins. So there's this push pins, and there's 3. Sorry, I want to put it in view for you guys, but also be able to manage it. So we've taken out the, this one's the most important, so the push pin from the tombstone. So there's a clip for the tombstone. This is basically just what transfers air into your gun. Okay, so we pulled that out. The whole grip comes off. Very simple. Done. That's gone. So now we got our e-grip. But before we can use it, like, it's pretty much ready to go. We can just install it and it's good to go. But again, we want to be fancy. We're installing the Ape Rampage board today on this. So basically it's 3 screws. 3 screws, 1, 2, 3, and 1 Allen key, it looks like. So let's take apart the trigger assembly. Yeah, I think we need to take it all apart. We're installing a new board. I'm sure we need to get in there deep. Cool, so 3 screws, 4, one big one. Let's take this bad boy apart. Oh, let's take off the battery door. Let's actually take out the battery. So these are rechargeable battery. I don't bother keep buying batteries. And it looks like we also need to take the ASA off. So that's it's a process, man. We're gonna do it. Alright, now we're getting somewhere, folks. We're getting somewhere. So we got our grip. Okay, so you pull the safety out. And take apart the trigger guard. I'm just gonna open this bad boy up. And you got your trigger assembly. Let me get this stuff out of the way. It's getting kind of messy. You got your trigger assembly. Very simple. 2 springs. And this is your board. That's your old board. You can see the solenoid is a magnetic solenoid. Like, this is a magnet, and so that's basically what pushes the, when the solenoid fires, this is what brings it back into place. So it's kind of cool, but not the board we're going to be using. So we'll take just the structure for it, and we'll bring in our bad boy. So this is the Ape Rampage board. It's got the upgraded solenoid. This is the Power Shot solenoid. Pretty badass. Okay, so we use the same structure. Good to go. our new board. Now I do want to mention it's very, very, very important that the trigger sensor in this is right here. I don't know if you can see that, but that red thing, that's the trigger sensor, right? So because of these A5s, they're not cut for this board. What you want to do is kind of just make a little cut in it so that the trigger sensor can fit in there. As you can see, I cut this down, and this is just where this trigger sensor is gonna fit in. Like, I basically used a soldering iron and I just melted it down. I just needed a little space, because if you don't make that space and you try to jam in the board, that trigger sensor is gonna come off and your board's gonna be, well, it's not gonna work unless you know how to solder a trigger sensor back on, which I don't think you want to be playing with, but to each his own. So let's go ahead and install our circuit board, our new circuit board. So the solenoid goes in that way, if I'm not mistaken. Trigger sensor fits in perfectly. This goes to our battery. Easy peasy. It's actually really simple stuff, eh? Yeah. Put the trigger assembly in last. Just want to make sure we put our screws in back for the AC at the bottom. There's two. Go in 1, 2, and again, it's just so that these have something to hook into. Okay, so we'll put our trigger guard back on first. Just plug that bad boy back in there. Get into these little holes. That's our trigger guard. And just place this right back over there. I'm trying to do this backwards so that you guys can see what I'm doing. So you'll excuse me if I fidget a lot. There we go. Okay. So now let's just throw in our screws. Got 1, 2, 3 screws, and that bottom one. Okay, done. We'll put our battery back. I guess we can do that. It doesn't matter. Put our battery in. Battery door. So far so good. Okay, so we're looking good. What we want to do now is just install the trigger assembly. Just throw that in there. And you want to put your safety selector switch. Just right through there. And that's it. Safety, fire, full auto. As you can see, 3 selections. Okay, so that's good. The ASA. Yeah, we just need to throw this back on. It's not really a big deal. Fairly quickly. Longer screw in the back. At least I think it's longer. And key. Okay. Upgraded trigger assembly done. let's move on. So next we want to upgrade the internals of the A5. So basically I want to take out all these push pins. I'm going to try to move a little bit quicker because I don't want this to be like a 2-hour video or whatever. But take out the push pins. Just be very careful. There's a spring in there, so the spring comes out. Take all the push pins out. I guess we already had taken a bunch of them out. So you don't want to, in order to get this out, you just want to like put a screwdriver in there and just lightly push up. And that'll get the bolt out of the back. You just kind of pull the latch right. Be more gentle than I am. That was our valve tube, and hopefully you're more gentle than I am. That's our bolt. That's our power tube. Inside is the valve. I'm not gonna bother taking that apart, but it's a bunch of pieces in there. This is basically where the tombstone goes in, and that's what transfers air into your gun. We're installing all new stuff, so let's get our new stuff out. We got our super bolt. So this is the old bolt. I'll do this piece by piece. This is the old one. It's a little plastic thingy. This is the new one, it's metal. It's got an O-ring on the end, so both do. Just to seal the air at the end of the shot. And this has got the latch arm as we talked about. And the spring just goes in there. So that's that. Goodbye old bolt. Okay, so we're ready to reassemble everything. So we'll take our bolt. Before we put everything back together, let's just put a little bit of oil onto our bolt. Run the O-ring and just a little bit, not too much. Get that nice and greased up. The O-ring. And then the latch arm. Actually, we'll do the latch arm too. We'll do any moving part really. And let's do the bolt. Just a little bit of oil. And we don't want to do inside of there because that's where the sear catches. So, but pretty much everywhere else is fine, especially around that O-ring at the top. So that moves through, and that's good enough. And you know what? We'll do a little bit on the power tube. And you don't really have to, but it's just easier to get it in and out of the gun. There you go. Okay, so let's put everything back together. We're good to go. I think we're almost done with the internals. So we'll put the spring onto the power tube. There's our bolt. There's our latch arm. Okay, just put your finger right there. Make sure the tombstone goes at the bottom, the hole. And just hold your finger in there. You're just gonna shove everything back in. Put that in the little hole there. That's a little greasy, sorry. Okay, and I'll just get our screwdriver, pull everything in, and we're good. Now we're gonna use, remember, we're gonna use the silver spring and not the green spring from our bolt. And the reason for that is that this has more compression. This is a stronger spring. Since we are using the zero kick hammer, it's not as heavy as a bolt. So we need that extra compression so that it can hit the power tube and release more air. Otherwise you're not going to have velocity in your gun, right? So this is very important. Hammer pin goes into the back of that. That goes into the little, once we put it in, the weight with the little hole. We're gonna put our spring in that little hole. I don't know if you guys could see that. Okay, and maybe pull this a little forward a little bit more. Yeah. Okay, and just put our back cap on. Go ahead and push a push pin in just to hold that in place. And now we're ready for our E-grip, which is very exciting after we've upgraded it. Put our tombstone in. E-grip goes on just like that. Push pin. Push pin. And push pin with the tombstone. Okay. There you have it. Fully assembled. All the internals are upgraded. Shoots good. Actually, we have full auto now, which probably is 3-round burst because we haven't programmed it. Ooh. Or could be full auto on 20 balls a second, looks like. Alright, so it's 20 balls a second full auto. Yeah, that's gonna be pretty crazy when we actually shoot that, but that is actually gonna be the speed at which we can shoot, and we can actually even turn that up, but yeah, there you have it.